What's up everyone, War Brothers Collectibles here, welcome back to another video. In this video I wanted to, for a little bit of fun, put together a Indiana Jones timeline, basically from when he was born all the way up until Dial of Destiny. Now this is not going to be an absolute 100% accurate timeline. People will say there is things missing because there is so much in the Indiana Jones universe. There's another set of novels that were exclusive to Germany and have only just been recently translated to English by the fans, I believe. So there's a whole other set of novels that I've never read, and I don't have in this collection. There's other video games, there's comic books, but this is just going to be everything that I own in physical media of Indiana Jones put in a timeline for a little bit of fun today. So let's take a look. So first we have the adventures of young Indiana Jones, which basically starts off from right when he was born and his adventures as a child, usually traveling the world with his mother and father and sort of his nanny, sort of his tutor. She tutors him in all his schoolwork while they are traveling the world. And box set 1 ends during the Mexican Revolution. That's when Indy decides to join the fight in World War I, which brings us on to the war years. So this is when he joins the Belgian army and fights in Europe and Africa in World War I. And then the Adventures of Young Indiana Jones, Volume 3, The Years of Change, was the last part of the Indiana Jones TV series and basically just takes place before these novels, I believe. There's one, Mystery of the Blues, which it takes place in early 1920s Chicago, I think. So we're right up to like the 1920 mark by this point, which brings us on to the first of the Bantam novels, Indiana Jones and the Peril at Delphi by Rob McGregor. I believe, just had a quick look inside, this takes place 1920 or 1922, round about that. And then each book basically progresses by a couple of years, all his various adventures. Genesis Deluge, Noah's Ark, best book in the entire series, by the way. Unicorn's Legacy, another good one. And then The Interior World. And then by the time we get up to Sky Pirates, this is 1930, so we're getting closer to the films. I think these two books take place in the same year because they pretty much follow on from each other. So we're at 1930 at this point. And then of course Indiana Jones and the Philosopher's Stone, the Dinosaur Eggs, Hollow Earth. And then by the time we get to Indiana Jones and the Secret of the Sphinx, we are in 1935, which of course is the same year as Temple of Doom. So there was a couple of ways I could have done this. So the way this book ends, it pretty much could lead straight into Temple of Doom. However, the way I've done this timeline, I believe what comes next, if you're considering all these to be in the same universe, is actually Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb, the video game. This takes place again in 1935. And this is sort of like a spiritual prequel to the Temple of Doom. Again, this one mentions Lao She and the Nurhachi statue, and this literally goes straight into Temple of Doom, which in timeline order, this film comes next. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, 1935. And then Raiders of the Lost Ark, we are at 1936. Classic Search for the Ark of the Covenant. And then Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, 1938. So we're getting towards the end now of the timeline. So this pretty much takes place just before the Nazis rise into power. So this is just before World War II. And then next in the timeline is actually Indiana Jones and the Army of the Dead. This takes place during World War II, 1943, if I remember correctly. As you can see, I've got my bookmark in. I'm still reading this book and I'm actually really enjoying it. It's another good addition to the Indiana Jones novels. And then we have Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. This takes place 1957, if my memory serves me correctly. So the character of, he's not actually on this poster, but the character of George McHale, features in this book. These kind of like were a tie together. This one was like released at the same time as the film. So that's Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Not a fan of that one. I've got to say, out of everything, it's probably my least favourite in the series. And then last but not least, set in the 60s, is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And then he retires. He's retired from the college. This was his last final sort of big adventure. Indiana Jones back in the saddle for one final triumph, as they say in the film. So I believe this is where the timeline ends, and I think it's a good way to end the series. So as you can see, he's had a very full action-packed life, and it's one hell of an adventure to join him on. So if you would like to maybe explore the character of Indiana Jones further, from the 5 films that we've got, there's definitely a lot of content out there to expand on the character's backstory and his character traits and his character development. There's a lot of extra material that you can get your hands on and enjoy. So there's also, there's comic books. I think I own one of the old Indiana Jones Omnibus Volume 1, which is like The Fate of Atlantis, and The Fate of Atlantis is also a video game. And The Great Circle takes place in between these two. Indiana Jones and The Great Circle takes place between the Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade films. So you can basically construct a timeline any way that you want it, and you can change things out, add things in, remove things. But this was just all the physical media that I had, and this was the timeline that I constructed. So from the very beginning, when he was born and a child, First World War, early 1920s, all the way through the beginnings of his career, right the way through to the film timeline, which begins with Temple of Doom. But I've put the Emperor's Tomb just before that, right the way through to his retirement and happy ending in the Dial of Destiny. So hope you enjoyed watching this video, guys. Please consider subscribing to my channel, and I will see you soon in the next one. Take care.